On November 10, 2025, a car exploded in a suicide bomb attack near the Red Fort metro station in Delhi, killing several people. Later, a video emerged of the alleged suicide bomber, Umar Nabi, in which he can be seen speaking to the camera, appearing to justify the act of suicide bombing. In this week's episode of Newsweek South Asia, we speak with a Kashmiri political activist and the director of the European Foundation for South Asian Studies to understand the incident, the evolving threats of suicide bombings, and the broader framework of radicalization and terrorism in Kashmir. Sir, welcome to our show. How do you view the fact that a well-educated Kashmiri youth carried out a suicide bombing in Delhi?
I think for us as Kashmiris, and especially as a society, but also as Kashmiri Muslims, I think it's a very worrying trend. I think we as a society, as Kashmiris, should perhaps introspect how we have come to this position that educated youth, people who are doctors, not stone pelters who don't have a job, people who are well settled, are justifying suicide bombing, justifying the killing of innocent people. And I think the time of all the time saying that, this is not part of Islam, to which I agree, it is not part of Islam. But I think there is a more concerted effort needed from us, from Kashmiris, Kashmiri Muslims especially, but also Muslims elsewhere in India, to come out openly against these people.
Why do you think this suicide attack happened? What trends worry you the most, especially regarding the role of religious extremism?
I think it's now it has become much more difficult to conduct attacks, terrorist attacks, and then also still run away alive. So suicide bombings is, of course, not a new phenomena. The worrying trend here, of course, is that the suicide bombers are trying to justify it with foundations of their interpretations of religion, and that's a problem. If you watch the video of Umar Nabi, he's saying this is not suicide, this is martyrdom. Because suicide, of course, has a very different connotation in religion. So that is, I think, the most important and the most difficult part and the most worrying part, that these people don't consider it as suicide, they consider it a path to martyrdom. And I think now, because of the more concerted efforts in the world, but also in India, of trying to stop terrorist attacks, trying to attack the infrastructure of terrorism, these suicide bombings are a worrying trend, and I think they will continue more and more, because it has become difficult to conduct attacks and then just disappear and still be alive. So this is indeed worrying.
How do you assess Pakistan's attempts to portray terrorism in Kashmir as a homegrown phenomenon rather than something it sponsors?
The worrying trend here is not the white collar trend. The worrying trend here is that more and more Pakistan has tried to make it appear as if this is a Kashmiri owned thing. In the past, India has been very successful at diplomatic levels in exposing cross-border terrorism by Pakistan, whether that's from Punjab, whether that's the Jaish, Lashkar, or even the Pashtun belt. More recently, what you have seen is that Pakistan has tried to put the onus back and on Kashmiris, in order to tell the world that this is an indigenous movement by Kashmiris, while they are being trained in Pakistan and they are being armed by Pakistan. As you see, during the last so-called Solidarity Day of February 5th in Pakistan, the various jalsas were not conducted in Lahore or in Pindi. They were conducted in Rawalakot, in Punch, in areas which are under occupation of Pakistan and which are Kashmiri areas. The same happening here. Now you have doctors, now you have Kashmiris who are getting involved or trying to get involved. So that gives Pakistan the plausible deniability of saying, look, this is done by the Kashmiris. And as you may remember, just recently, a new group also came into emergence, which is the Tehreek-e-Taliban Kashmir. Again, this is an effort to try to put the onus on Kashmir and Kashmiris so that Pakistan has plausible deniability in the world and can say this is happening by Kashmiris, they are doing this themselves, and Pakistan is not involved, while you and I and everyone else knows the truth, of course.
How do you see the role of radicalization infrastructure, such as extremist networks and certain madrasas, in influencing and brainwashing vulnerable youth in Kashmir?
I will come back to one issue that which has been raised in the media earlier as well. I've written about it years ago, and that is the infrastructure of religious radical schooling, education, and then you come back to madrasas in Pakistan and the madrasa thought in Kashmir and elsewhere in India, how madrasas export their ideology, non-secular radical interpretation of Islam to Kashmir, and then you have in very far-flung areas you have people who don't have the opportunity to go to schools, and they are indoctrinated by this thought. Pakistan has more than 80,000 madrasas, and I think the government here should maybe do a check on how many madrasas are unregistered, how many madrasas go unchecked, what is taught at these madrasas, who are the teachers.
What are the major challenges India now faces in dealing with this evolving security and radicalization landscape?
India is a very big country. You can't. It's 1.5 billion people. Unless and until people themselves will not shun the path of violence, such incidents will, of course, continue to happen. There needs to be a counter-terrorism preparedness, and I think India has definitely increased that. At the same time, in such a big country with 1.5 billion people, incidents are bound to happen if people subscribe to radical ideologies and they have access to weapons and ammunition, which in this neighborhood there are ample countries which are willing to provide that to people here in India. So because at the end of the day, a big country or a very sophisticated country like America, 9/11 still happened. There are still terrorist attacks happening in Europe. So no country is immune to terrorist attacks. It is the people who make the country immune to terrorist attacks.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you.